that for some people, this is going to be a difficult time. Now, it's time for a short break right now, and when we return, we will continue our discussion of Caregiving 101 on surviving the holidays. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You know, honey, I've been thinking. You're not prepared for an earthquake. Take this antique vase your mom got you. If the big one hit, it'd be a goner. Or this clay penguin you made in 3rd grade. History. By simply strapping loose furniture to the wall and putting putty under loose items, you can prevent serious injury and damage. Nothing is safe, even poor Uncle Petey. Get the message? Be prepared.
The Department of Public Works Bureau of Contract Administration keeps the city's projects on track, ensuring safety first and fairness always, from the streets all the way to the stars.
Welcome back to Aging in LA. Our topic on today's program is Caregiver 101 on surviving the holiday blues. Our guests are social workers from the Los Angeles Department of Aging, Annette Lewis and Susie Rodriguez Shapiro. Back to the holidays. It's a time when we're meant to share with one another because there's a lot of emotional content in the holidays. What are some of the tricks or devices that a caregiver or a concerned offspring might use to bring mom or dad sort of back into the present, Susie?
Well, to begin with, by checking in with them. No, you don't want to force yourself on them, but you want to make it very authentic that you really would like them to participate. Mm-hmm. And if they say, well, it's either a financial reason why they can't come, find a way to do it while still allowing them to maintain their dignity. Also, if it's just a matter of, cross town, say, no, it'd be no problem. I'd love to come over and pick you up. It's really no problem. Right. So making them really feel wanted and welcome is a good thing to do.
And how about anticipating the holidays? Maybe calling them and say, Mom, I found these holiday recipes, and before the crush all begins, I'd like to come over and go through them with you. Mm-hmm. That's kind of helpful, isn't it?
Absolutely. So planning ahead.
Yes.
And this way it creates less stress because you know what to expect, you know when you need to go shopping. Other tips that we also like to share is that if you are the caregiver and you're used to doing a lot, but you don't know what to share with your kids, how they could help you, there's a few recommendations. One thing, if there's like light housekeeping or things that need to get fixed in the house, have that as a gift your kids could give you. Say, son, it would be great if you could come in one day and fix the lights or put in grab bars. Other ideas would be, are there specific days in the week or within a month that you could come and you watch over Dad and then I could go out for an hour or two? So that's a nice gift.
Right, yes. We call it respite care.
Exactly.
Taking a break. Right. It's so often true that we don't take that time for ourselves. Right. We have to recognize that this is a stressful time and we're putting a lot of effort into our caregiving, but it's okay to just stop for a sec.
Right. And as the family caregiver also, you want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for all of this by thinking that everything can be the way it's been every year. Not all traditions have to be, kept up. You need to make it more manageable so that everyone does have a good time, including the family caregiver who's the central one of orchestrating the whole thing.
Right.
And getting others to help out. Sometimes people are wanting to help but don't know where to begin without stepping on the toes of the primary caregiver.
Of course. But there are little things that we all need to do to make, for example, Christmas more green. There are whole new lighting strings now, which really can reduce the size of your electric bill, for example, which would be a welcome gift for many seniors.
True. And there are some basic things for the holidays that we should all participate in, like having a good amount of sleep.
Yes.
eating the right kind of foods, because alcohol and overeating actually creates more depression. Mm-hmm. Being active, And active doesn't mean you have to go sign up at the gym, but taking a walk out in the park, getting some sunshine. A lot of us, if we live in states that it's much cooler weather, then you could sit inside where the sun is shining in to
Right.
get some sun. If you live in beautiful LA, go outside. Get even just 20 minutes in the morning. Helps with the mood, helps with energizing yourself. And the other thing is that emotional support, is reaching out. Call a friend. Go out to meet some people. And if you are in that point where we addressed about depression and you feel like it's affecting your life, that not getting up, you don't want to get out of the house, reach out for someone. Call the doctor, let them do an evaluation to see, is it something medical, or do you actually need to get some counseling?
Well, now people can contact the Department of Aging as well, right? If they think, I've got some concerns here for the holidays. Are there people there who can say, look, let's go have a little checklist right now?
Yes, if you call our Department of Aging, we'd be happy to talk to you and help you determine whether this is something that seems like it does need the help of professionals.
Right.
Sometimes it could just be, checking through a physical exam to see if the person is, their medications are in balance and such. As older adults, remember that there's many medications that are taken in combination.
boy.
And with the holiday season, alcohol becomes a challenge. In that, between a little bit of wine with this dinner, a little bit of toasting with that, all of a sudden alcohol can have an interaction that needs to be looked at.
Right, the dreaded eggnog.
The breaded eggnog, whether it's got a little spike to it or not.
Exactly.
But those things are very important to look at. And perhaps the person may need a little counseling or therapy, maybe a medication for a temporary period just to get them through this.
Right.
Because regardless of what your faith is and which holidays you celebrate, the commercialization of the holiday season does take everyone in and get everyone anticipatory about the gift buying and the gift
Right.
giving.
Right, but I keep returning to this thing of isolation. If you can get out and get with other people, you'll find that they have the similar concerns. They're concerned about whether or not the son or daughter are going to make it across the country, or how much can I spend on gifts, if I can spend on gifts. Being that feeling of isolation, I'm the only one going through this, that's just deadly when it's not true.
Right.
All of us feel this.
Right. But you won't get the help unless you reach out.
Right.
And there's so much, family members, what they could do, if you know that grandma lives away, if you know there's a neighbor across the street who's alone, give them a call.
Right.
It's amazing how just a phone call, just saying hello, could go a long way. And sometimes that's the only phone call that they get for the whole entire holiday. So there's a lot that we can do as caregivers who don't live with our loved one, and there's things that the caregiver who's taking care of a loved one or an older adult who's living home alone, it's to reach out.
Right, and one of the ways you can lessen anxiety is to establish a budget, to limit yourself on how much gift giving you're going to do.
That's right. In the past years, maybe things were more plentiful, and so therefore people could give grander gifts and give to many more people. But now it's a time to rethink it and realize what really is important. So the smallest of token gifts that you can give to your daughter, your son who's visiting is very much appreciated.
Sure it is. And there are gifts, that are legacy gifts. A photograph put in a new frame, something that has a substantial memory value, if you will. Those are very nice gifts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. My mom took the photo album of myself and all my siblings as children, and she recreated it. She literally just Xeroxed it and repackaged it for each of us. That was so meaningful.
Sure.
And a beautiful gift. Other ideas are the recipes. Those go a long way. Being able to pass down recipes from mom, grandma, the generation, those get lost. And that's a precious, precious, valuable gift that, you can't put a dollar to it.
No, and it really isn't dollar values. Now, I know one of the things we talked about in preparation for this show is finding time to laugh. Just at the absurdity of the situation. I mean, you can go on the internet if you have access to it, and there are funny places that YouTube has funny videos. You can find that joke each day that somehow says, don't be so foolish about this. It is, after all, just a certain time of year.
And even when you reminisce about some of the people that are gone now, that are no
Yes.
longer with you, just remembering some of those humorous situations or scenarios or episodes that happened, that again bring back the memory of the person who's gone,
Right.
and brings humor to the whole family. It's a little lighter.
Right. And again, this message, spend time with other people. Don't isolate yourself. I know it's hard sometimes to pick up that phone, but that's a good way to make contact with people. You don't have to get up from the chair. You can make contact with a live person.
Or go outside. Go to your local park, go to your local library, so you are around people, and it's another opportunity to meet people, to make friends. If you're outside, you're in the sunshine, we talked about how important the sun is, but then you'll see other people who are out there, whether they're with children or other seniors who are, sitting on a bench, reading something. It gives you an opportunity to meet, to talk, to socialize.
Right, and especially in Los Angeles, our weather is uniformly good.
Yes.
Get out there. Okay, you got to put on an extra sweater, but still, if you can get to the park, sure enough, conversation is going to develop.
Right. And you never know who you're going to have the opportunity to meet out there.
Exactly.
You'll make new friends. And family includes friends.
Yes, it certainly does. I know that I have seen people who thought they were all alone, and then they kind of made a list of other people they thought were alone, and those are the people who got together and had the most wonderful holiday ever.
Right. So plan, make some phone calls, plan ahead, get yourself out there, whether you're going to the senior center, you're going to a local faith-based organization, seeing, what can I do for you? Is there something I could volunteer to do?
Right. See, the truth is, we can get through this together.
Yes.
Now, our time is up for today's program. Thanks so much to our guests, Annette Lewis and Susie Rodriguez Shapiro from our own Los Angeles City Department of Aging. And now, it's time for today's Stat Shot. Here are some tips on how to avoid the holiday blues. Acknowledge your feelings and seek support. Be realistic about expectations. Set differences aside. Stick to a budget. Focus on healthy habits, eating, sleeping, exercise. Take time out for yourself. Avoid thinking you need to have a Hallmark holiday. Create a positive attitude. Keep active, socialize, volunteer, and stay physically active. And find some time to laugh. And that's today's Senior Stat Shot. The Los Angeles Department of Aging produces this program with CityView, Channel 35, so that seniors living in Los Angeles and surrounding communities are well informed on the many issues that face them in everyday life. And also to let you know of the many services that the Department of Aging offers our senior citizens. Now, we'd like to hear from you with comments on the program, what you like, what you think can be improved, and ideas for future programs. So give us a call. The number's there on your screen, area code 213-252-4088. That's 213-252-4088. Call us with your comments and ideas. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm Paul Peterson. For the Los Angeles Department of Aging, the people here at CityView Channel 35, and all of our guests on Aging in LA, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Burt Park. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Wednesday, April 20th, 2011. We're here in the John Farrow Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. I want to thank those members of the City Council that are here on time. Council members Cardenas, Hahn, Krikorian, Labange, Perry, Rosendahl, Smith, and Wesson. We're waiting one more council member. Just Mr. Parks and Mr. Koretz are missing. We do not expect Mr. Alarcon in today. He's excused. Mr. Huizar is excused. Mr. Reyes is excused. And Mr. Zine is coming in at noon. So if council members Koretz and Parks will please make their way down as soon as possible, we'll begin shortly. In the meantime, I want to welcome those folks who are here from the general public, as well as those who are viewing us on Channel 35, which broadcasts these meetings live throughout the city's cable system. We're also available online at lacity.org and through your telephone by calling 213-621-CITY. That's a service called Council Phone. It's 213-621-CITY. Our agendas are available in the back for anybody who would like to speak on any of the items that are before us. Please fill out a speaker card and hand it one of the sergeants at arms. Or you can always catch these meetings remotely in Van Nuys or San Pedro if that's closer to where you live. And you can fill out speaker cards from there and give public testimony from those two locations as well, which we're able to watch here remotely. Finally, we also have general public comment as well, and that is for items that are not on the agenda today, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the City Council. And if you'd like to fill out a speaker card for that, too, please do. Again, we're just awaiting Mr. Parks and Mr. Koretz. As soon as we have a quorum, we will begin. Thank you for your patience, and we will begin shortly. I'd like to recognize Mr. Cardenas in the meantime. Mr. Cardenas for special representation.
Thank you very much, members. We have a special guest with us today. I'd like to welcome Congressman Walden Bello. He's from the Philippines, and he's here on a visit to Los Angeles to talk to Filipino nationals who have been impacted by human trafficking. Congressmember Bello is conducting interviews with actual victims and is in the process of facilitating relationships with law enforcement officials and advocacy groups involved with human trafficking here in Los Angeles. And we have a very active human trafficking task force in Los Angeles. So we welcome Congressman Bello to the City of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Congressman, if you'd like to say anything, Congressman, would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you very much, Council Member Cardenas, as well as other members of the Council of the City of Los Angeles. I would just like to say that I'm very happy to be here and be given the opportunity to briefly speak to you because we share similar concerns about stopping this plague of human trafficking that has hit our country. And this is something, of course, that is a problem that is also shared by many other countries in the world. And I do hope that between the government of the Philippines, the government of the United States, and the government of the City of Los Angeles, we can create effective measures to finally stamp out this plague of human trafficking. Thank you very much again for inviting me here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. We are awaiting Mr. Parks and Mr. Koretz. Any other announcements in the meantime about events happening in people's districts or anything else for this weekend? Mr. Lamonge?
President, I had the honor to be with your deputy, Angela Mato, last night on Vine Street, the 50th store in Southern California for Jersey's Mike's sandwich shop, and it was opened, and they had a great performance by the city glee team from Hollywood High, where they made a percentage donation, also to some other social service agencies. So in your district, another good revitalization of Vine Street.
I was going to be there. I was on my way back on a plane from Washington, but thank you for representing us very well, and we're excited about that shop. We do have Mr. Koretz here, so we do have a quorum. If we can please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Han, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Garcetti, 10 members present and a quorum. Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Koretz moves and Mr. Rosendahl seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
All right, Mr. Labange moves and Mr. Krikorian seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well. If we can run through the agenda, colleagues, any items you wish to call special, now would be the time to direct your attention to the agenda. First items, please.
Items 1 through 8 are items noticed for public hearing.
Any items that have cards, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, we do have cards on items number 1 and 8.
Okay, we'll call those special for cards from the public. We'll close the other public hearings on 2 through 7. Any special items, colleagues, 2 through 7? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
5 through 7 are approved. 2 through 4 are approved from the first reading. Those will come back for a second reading as ordinances next week. If we could send all items forthwith today. Next items, please.
Mr. President, items 9 through 26 are items for which public hearings have been held. We do have requests from members to continue item number 11 to April 27th, and to continue item number 14 to April 26th.
Okay, any objection to those continuations? If not, we'll continue items 11 and 14. Other special items? That's 9 through 26. Any? If not, let's go ahead then on the balance. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
9 and 10 will carry over 1 week as ordinances, and the others are approved. Next items, please.
Items 27 through 33 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. I see the continuation on item 31. Is that correct? So the 26th?
Yes, sir, to April 26th.
There's no objection. Those items are before us. We'll continue 31. Mr. Rosendahl? 27 for Mr. Rosendahl, and Mr. Krikorian will call special 32. Are there specials, colleagues? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll.
Mr. President, we do have cards on items 28, 30,
Okay.
and 32, which was called special.
32 will call special for both the cards, and Mr. Krikorian, and 28 and 30 will call special. That means we have 29 and 33 left.
We do have a card in on number 33 as well, sir.
On which one? 33?
33.
Okay, so we'll just vote on 29, please. Let's go ahead and open the roll on 29, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Next items, please.
Mr. President, items 34 through 39 are items noticed for closed session. Would you like to hold them on the desk?
Yes, let's hold those on the desk for closed session. And also item 40 as well, which I'll call special. That'll probably be a combination of open and closed. Alrighty. Any other items, colleagues?
Mr. President.
Yep. Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
That takes council back to items called special or public comment on items not on today's council agenda.
Okay, and I'll call 28 special as well as the card. Would like to now recognize Mr. Krikorian, and I will join him for item number 32, which we will be taking out of order. and then we'll come back for public comment, and then item 27. Mr. Krikorian.
Council would like to recognize City Council President Garcetti and the very special councilman of the 2nd District, Paul Krikorian.
Thank you very much. This item is an item that this council has always stood forthright and steadfast with not only the Armenian community but the human community to recognize the horrific events of the Armenian genocide. But I'd like to hand over to my colleague from the 2nd Council District, our first Armenian-American council member, Paul Krikorian, who has done an extraordinary job of also elevating something that had been a tradition here, of being able to speak up and to speak out, but to also recognize those individuals throughout our community who have made a difference of not only highlighting Armenian history and the genocide, but of making an impact on the human family. And I'll just set the stage with one last thing upstairs. Mr. Krikorian and I hosted representatives from the church who are here, representatives from the community, and a number of other people who we will hear from as well. But we heard loud and clear up there the stories of what this month is for the human family. A recognition of holy moments and holy days, a recognition of horrific events gone by, but also ultimately of triumph, resurrection, and other moments. And I'll just end with one story. When I went to Armenia a few years ago to create the sister city relationship between Yerevan and the city of Los Angeles, I think many of you know Lynn Amirian, who is a longtime employee of mine, my executive assistant, and we were in one of those beautiful moments in a town outside of Yerevan, sitting down with a family of hers. We had fresh homemade yogurt and honey taken from hives right there on the property, some amazing fresh berries, and we sat and we ate. And if you've never had Armenian yogurt in Armenia, you've not really lived. But we looked over and saw a picture of her family, of family members who no longer are with us, those who perished in the genocide, and their direct descendants were who we were visiting. In that moment, it encapsulated everything I think that we seek to do today. It is not to mark tragedy as much as to remember family. Remember family that for some are direct family members and for others part of the human family. But a recognition that this city and this city council will always speak the truth about the Armenian genocide. We will push to make sure in museums and in classrooms every new generation knows of that. We will seek to right the wrong of history and to provide a pathway for those who would deny it to liberate themselves through the recognition of what we know to be the truth, but ultimately to make sure that we can inform a new generation that this is a living issue that we must take seriously throughout the world today. And with that, I'd like to, it's a real honor to hand over to Councilmember Paul Krikorian the microphone to say some words as well and to point out some of our guests too.
Thank you very much, President Garcetti. And it's a great privilege for me to stand before you colleagues again this year as we recognize April 24th as the Day of Remembrance in the city of Los Angeles of the Armenian Genocide. And I want to thank my colleagues first because every year we take time to do this. We take time to recognize and remember the Armenian Genocide, and it's been a long tradition in this city to do so. So I want to thank you as an Armenian American, but I also want to thank all of you as an American, as one who cares about the values that our country stands for. Because this day of remembrance is not just about a tragedy that occurred to the Armenian people beginning 96 years ago. This is a day of remembrance of the tragedies that have befallen so many people and continue to this day. And those issues are inextricably tied, colleagues, because the Armenian Genocide set the stage for the genocides that would come after it. And the fact that 96 years later, this community and the world
everyone in the world who cares about truth and who cares about justice and who cares about all that is right. After 96 years, we continue to wait for justice. We continue to wait for acknowledgement by the perpetrators of this crime. And it is that impunity, that lack of justice that has lingered for all these decades, all these generations now, that has opened the door for so many other crimes against humanity that have followed the Armenian genocide and that continue to this day as we are meeting here in parts of the world, in Africa and elsewhere in the Middle East, throughout the world where atrocities are occurring to this very day, because perpetrators know that the world will turn a blind eye, as it did to the Armenian genocide. And so it's especially fitting and appropriate that we as a city, as a body, take a moment to pause, take a moment to remember, take a moment to create an official acknowledgement of that memory. I think it's also important that we call upon our national government, we call upon our Congress, we call upon the President of the United States to appropriately recognize the genocide and to say the word out loud. Don't be afraid of it. It's just a word. Say it out loud. Genocide. When a government perpetrates the execution of 1.5 million people, according to official government policy, no matter the difficult political circumstances that our government may see as an aftermath of that, this government, like this city, like our state, must acknowledge that the genocide of the Armenians occurred and that it was, in fact, a genocide. And I hope that our president, when he's visiting Los Angeles this week, will take a moment from his schedule to come to Montebello, to the Armenian Genocide Martyrs Memorial, and lay a wreath there in appropriate recognition of the victims, the 1.5 million men, women, and children who perished in the Armenian genocide. And you know, I need to say this too. Whether we're talking about the Armenian genocide or the Holocaust or the genocides in Rwanda or Cambodia, it's very easy for us to become so overwhelmed by the statistics of this that we lose sight of the humanity of it. When you talk about numbers like 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, 1.5 million Armenians in the Armenian genocide, that's almost too much for the human mind to absorb. So I think it's important that we think of it in very personal terms. Every one of us in our work has come to this podium and asked at one time or another for a reward because of a particularly heinous crime that's happened in our district, something that moves us, something that, as we sit around and listen to these reward motions, brings us close to tears to hear some of the horrible crimes that people have committed against other people in this city. And I want you to think about that when we do that and when it touches our heart to hear of that crime against a person in our city. And then I want you to think about what it would be like to experience that thousands of times a day for 3 years. And if you can envision that, if you can absorb that into your heart, then you can begin to understand the magnitude of the Armenian genocide, the magnitude of 1.5 million people subjected to the most horrendous torture and violence and murder that could possibly be imagined. And that's why we take a moment to pause today, in remembrance of those who died, in remembrance, as President Garcetti said, also of the ultimate triumph of the Armenian people who make their home in Los Angeles now more than any other city outside of Armenia, but also in remembrance of the victims of genocide and atrocity throughout the world today, whose suffering we can do something about if we appropriately recognize the genocides of the past. So for that, I thank you, colleagues, for taking this moment, and I respectfully ask for your support on this resolution.
Mr. President, there may be others who wish to speak. If we could take a vote, and then we would also just like to, before we go to general public comment, Mr. Krikorian will point out our honoree and confer upon him a resolution from the City Council as well.
But at this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I proudly stand here today with my colleagues Eric Garcetti and Councilmember Krikorian as we take a moment today to remember and acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And Paul, seeing you here today reminds me that you came every year to participate in this, and this was some of the first times I think some of the City Council began to understand who you were and what you cared about and the issues that you were so passionate about. It's great to have you a part of our body here today as we do this. It's unbelievable as you talk about this incredible tragedy against our fellow human beings that happened in 1915. And we, again, as the City of Los Angeles acknowledges this like we do every single year, we do call on Turkey to listen to the facts, wake up to the facts, and as you say, just acknowledge that this happened. It's unbelievable to me that in the Republic of Turkey it is illegal to even refer to the atrocities of 1915 as a genocide. Despite the evidence, despite the acknowledgement from other countries, despite the grief and pain felt by many Armenians around the world, the Republic of Turkey still denies its people and the world acknowledgement of this event. It saddens me to know and to be reminded that human beings who are capable of such great accomplishments are still equally capable of such great evil. Stephen Jay Gould once said, "Few tragedies can be more extensive than the stunting of life, few injustices deeper than the denial of an opportunity to strive or even to hope." The Armenian genocide is a tragedy, and every year that the Republic of Turkey denies the historical validity of the Armenian genocide, they stunt the possibility of hope and healing for the descendants of many victims and survivors. I strongly support this resolution again today in the City of Los Angeles, and I urge the Republic of Turkey to acknowledge it as well. But I am so proud of us in the City of Los Angeles that we do this every year, and it gives Armenians in our own city and throughout the world comfort in knowing that the City of Los Angeles is on the right side and is on their side. It's the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do, and I'm pleased to do that. And I believe it is time, finally, for the President of the United States and for the United States Congress to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And if I have anything to do with that, I will.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, stand up with great respect. Mr. Krikorian, you being on the City Council will always remind us of the Armenian genocide that took place that time, the year 1915. Of course, it impacts me and many of the different hats I wear, and I thank the Council for supporting the resolution on Uganda the other day, where there might have been this Ugandan going back and being killed because he's an openly gay man, and gay people throughout the planet continue to be genocide. And we're all connected. Every human being on this earth is connected. We're all God's children, especially when we're celebrating Passover, the angel of death passing over a group of folks, as we're celebrating Easter and, of course, Good Friday, this Friday and that. Religions all together begin to reflect on the holiness and sacredness of all of us. And it is about time that people recognize that genocide, because it sets us all up for all the other genocides. And I know Mr. Koretz will probably speak next and remind us again never to forget what happened during the Hitler eras. But yes, we need to do this. Our president needs to acknowledge it. The world needs to acknowledge it. And we need to see that today and tomorrow we don't have any more genocides on this great earth of ours. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Krikorian, for bringing this acknowledgement of the tragedy to City Hall today. I mean, this was the first genocide in, unfortunately, a series of terrible genocides that we've seen in the last 100 years. And there's no question that the lack of acknowledgement of this first genocide in a way gave permission for those that followed, or at least a justification that they could use. And that I feel the impact of the Holocaust, of course, more closely because I lost relatives that I never met in the Holocaust. And I feel a certain amount of anger and sadness about that, and it's motivated me to do things like sponsoring bills in the legislature on Holocaust and Armenian genocide and other genocide education at the state level. But I don't really feel anger towards the country of Germany and the government of Germany, because this generation has acknowledged what's happened, and they've put things in place to try and make sure that it doesn't happen again. The astonishing thing for me, and I really feel more anger towards the Turkish government, because almost 100 years later, they still refuse to acknowledge the terrible things that were implemented by their forefathers. And they need to do that. There's no other way that we can achieve closure for the Armenian people and for the world for the horrors that have been done. The Armenian government needs to acknowledge it, and the U.S. government needs to acknowledge it. And despite the fact that it's politically inconvenient for them to do so, I think we have to all keep the pressure on, because it's the right thing to do for the world, and not to do so sets the worst of bad examples. And I appreciate Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Krikorian bringing this here this year. We have to find every way we can to get this message out to our government over the years until this finally happens. And it will happen. It has to happen. But I think sooner rather than later. And us making these kinds of presentations only helps move that forward. So thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. For 14 years now as an elected official, I've had the honor of putting my signature on a resolution acknowledging the Armenian genocide. And I want to thank you, my colleague Paul Krikorian, for including me as a second on this resolution this year. But it doesn't matter if I'm an elected official or not. I will always acknowledge and speak out against the atrocities that occurred during the Armenian genocide. But at the same time, I'll continue to speak out about the atrocious non-action of an entire government. And in addition to that, I will always be urging and encouraging and reminding our own government that we need to properly recognize the Armenian genocide. As we speak as a government and as a country that treats all people as equals, if there's a genocide that occurred where it's 1,000 people whose lives have been lost, or it's 6 million people, either way, it's a genocide, and it's equal in the eyes of God, it's equal in the eyes of humankind, it's equal in the eyes of everyone. But it's a shame that our government, for political reasons, here in this country is unwilling to recognize it formally. But as Janice Hahn said, we as individuals need to make sure wherever we stand, whether we're elected officials or not, we need to stand for the truth. And today we have the opportunity to speak about the truth, to speak about such an atrocious event that occurred and something that still affects people's hearts and minds today. But as Paul Koretz said, it's really important that we acknowledge this so that, in a way, so that it never happens again. And that is one of the reasons why we so much applaud the fact that we need to speak of history accurately, and we need to make sure that human beings, those that are born today and those that are born tomorrow, understand that these things did occur and they were at the hands of people who did wrong, and that we should never ever allow an individual or a society to permeate this ever again. So the Armenian genocide is something that did occur. It's something that's without question that should be acknowledged by every government throughout this world. And I'm very proud of the fact that the city of Los Angeles at every opportunity does so, that the state of California at every opportunity does so. But I'm very disappointed that our federal government does not recognize it either. And hopefully we will see in our days And maybe in the next few years, or maybe even this year, that a miracle would happen and that this country would actually treat the Armenian genocide the way it should be treated, as an atrocity, as something that should be condemned, as something that should be acknowledged by every country, and we should be the leaders of that acknowledgement right here in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Krikorian. Thank you very much again for your leadership. Genocide.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange, and thank you, colleagues, for all of those very eloquent words. We've started a new tradition of acknowledging a person each year who has been a chronicler of the genocide or otherwise has contributed to the cause of human rights and remembrance. And this year, it's my great pleasure to recognize our honoree, Professor Richard Hovhannisyan, Professor of Armenian and Near Eastern History and holder of the Armenian Educational Foundation Chair in Modern Armenian History at UCLA. Yes, UCLA, colleagues. Professor Hovhannisyan is a native of Tulare, California. He received a BA and a master's degree in history from Berkeley and a PhD in Russian and Near Eastern history from UCLA. He was a member of the UCLA faculty since 1962, and in that role he organized both the undergraduate and graduate programs in Armenian history at the university. He also served as the associate director of UCLA's Center for Near Eastern Studies from 1978 to 1995. He's been the author of many, many books and scholarly articles on Armenian and Near Eastern history, society, and culture, and on the phenomenon of genocide. And since 1997, Dr. Hovhannisyan has organized international conferences at UCLA on the historic cities and provinces of historic Armenia that were destroyed during the genocide and from which the Armenian people were dispossessed, including my own family's hometown of Kharpert. Professor Hovhannisyan is a Guggenheim Fellow and has received many academic honors from organizations and institutions throughout the world. He was the author of California's model curriculum on human rights and genocide, the chapter on the Armenian genocide of that model curriculum. He has been recognized and honored by the UCLA Alumni Association, the State of California, the United States Congress, Facing History and Ourselves, who many of you have worked with, Jewish World Watch, and virtually every Armenian organization that there is. And I'm very, very proud to be able to recognize him for all of his contributions to scholarly achievement, to the recognition of the Armenian genocide, to Armenian studies. He is truly a bright light of Los Angeles, and I'm proud to present him with this resolution on behalf of all of us in the City Council to Professor Richard Hovhannisyan. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, honorable members of the City Council of the City of Los Angeles, Reverend clergy, and dear fellow citizens of this city. You've been so grandiloquent, there is no need for me to say very much, and you have a busy schedule, but I do indeed appreciate this and the reaffirmation that many of you have voiced this morning about what is needed and what is truth and what is commitment. A couple of points we should remember is that what the Armenian community today and those who are involved in human rights today are really seeking is reaffirmation of the Armenian genocide by the United States government, because at the time when it did occur under the presidency of Woodrow Wilson, it was affirmed many times over and given the name, the murder of a nation, a Holocaust, and many other, inferno, and many other terms. We had a visitor from the Philippines this morning here who talked about human trafficking. And it reminded me that during the Armenian genocide, it was not only death, but it was the human trafficking of hundreds of thousands of children and women who were taken in forcibly and lost their cultural, ethnic, and religious identity because, as a result of that, human trafficking. So it is indeed a scourge that continues today. And in the Armenian case, it is not only an issue of numbers of 1.5 million, it's an issue of loss of an entire homeland and a way of life and a culture, a place where people had lived under the shadow of Mount Ararat for more than 3,000 years and annihilated within 2 or 3 years. And this is the enormity of that crime that has gone unpunished. And numbers of you have referred to it as being a prototype, and indeed it was a prototype for many of the other mass killings. And strangely, I had to reflect, and have reflected sometimes, that spring and April should be a month of birth and rejuvenation, as it is, but at the same time it's been also a month that has unleashed the forces perhaps pent up of murder and death. And today and this month we commemorate Rwanda, that happened in our lifetime when 800,000 people were slaughtered within a very, very short period of time. The Armenian genocide, the Holocaust will soon also be remembered in this period of spring. I thank you for this. I've spent years, when I entered the field of genocide studies, it was not because I'd ever studied genocide. I had grown up with survivors. We really didn't hear much of the stories, although we knew that our parents and grandparents, if we had them, most of us didn't have grandparents because they had been killed, but we know what they had been through, but we didn't want to hear about it. It was their story, not our story. We wanted to be good little American kids as quickly as we could, and it took years. And it was the issue of denial that some of you have referred to that drew me to this field against my will. It's not a very happy subject to study. And if I've published now 5 volumes on it, it's not because that was my choice, nor is it what I studied for my PhD, but it was what I was drawn to by ethical and moral standards of having to confront not only the genocide and the evil of genocide, but the lingering trauma that is created by denial. And any of you who has suffered an injustice that has gone unrequited know what it means to suffer the trauma from day after day and sometimes generation after generation. I conclude by thanking Councilman Krikorian, Council Chairman Garcetti, all of you who have spoke and all of you who will vote and speak up for human rights, because the Armenian genocide is not only an Armenian issue, it's a human issue. And there was the exiled Czech poet, Milan Kundera, who referred to those with great power who would annihilate people and then annihilate the basis for their cultural memory. And I would end with this very important statement, paraphrase, that the struggle against power is the issue of memory against forgetting. And I thank you all for being here to remind the world, to remind the city, to remind the state, to remind our president that we are here to remember against forgetting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor.
And just very briefly, we thank so much Archbishop Vaclav Sepian, who spoke upstairs and led us in prayer, as well as Father Miron Znikian, as well as all the members of the clergy who are here today. You honor us with your presence, the Armenian Assembly and the Armenian National Committee, who are upstairs as well, to help us with this. And we ask for your aye vote, and we thank you very much, Mr. Krikorian, for leading the way on this.
Okay, so we have one card, but I'm going to now call on one card is Mr. Walsh.
I lived in Addis Ababa, it was the city with the most Armenians outside of Armenia. I don't know if there's anybody here who lived in Ethiopia. We have tens of thousands. The President of the United States is a politically correct Holocaust denier. What do we have? Different kinds of politically correct Holocausts and politically incorrect Holocausts? And there's one reason that Obama won't acknowledge this. And it was the Ottoman Empire that killed people, not the current government of Turkey. It's because they're our allies. They are helping us commit Holocausts in Afghanistan. So since they're our allies, the Turks, we let them get away with one Holocaust. It's a get-out-of-jail-free Holocaust. Obama should be ashamed of himself. Iraq, again, our planes, our bases, everything is in Turkey, so they decide to forget about it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is our only card. Mr. Krikorian, we're going to ask you to call for this vote, please.
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
11 ayes. So ordered. Next item, Mr. Clerk. And as we change here, I'm going to look for Mr. Rosendahl. But he's not here.
Mr. Rosendahl?
I don't see him in the hall. Mr. Parks, could you address the closed session items?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I'd recommend on the closed session items that all of them be held in open session. Item 34 through 39, the last four being workers' comp cases, number 34 being a settlement, and number 35 being a court judgment.
Mr. President, we do have cards on number 35. If you'd like, we could hold that on the desk and move items 34 and 36 through 39 at this point in time.
Those are all items that are been approved by the city attorney, correct?
Yes, recommended, yes.
Recommended. Thank you very much. So taking the city clerk's recommendation, withholding that one item, let's open the roll.
Hold on, sir. We should take those individually. For item 34, there is a recommendation for settlement in the amount of $350,000 of claim number C11-0272 by Melody Kushnu.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Mr. President, item 36, there is a recommendation for settlement through four stipulated awards with a combined value of $159,650 in the case entitled David Harris versus City of Los Angeles.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Item 37, there is a recommendation for settlement in the case entitled Tatiana Goldfield versus City of Los Angeles through a stipulated award for 72% permanent disability in the sum of $125,617.50, plus a life pension estimated at $120,095 for a total settlement value of $245,712.50, less credit for any permanent disability advances that have been paid to date.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
Okay. Item 38, there's a recommendation for settlement in the case entitled Gary Ingram versus City of Los Angeles through stipulations with request for award at 74% in the total amount of $134,257.50 at the weekly rate of $270 plus a life pension estimated at $95,675.32 at the weekly rate of $108.23 payable at the conclusion of permanent disability payments after taking credit for $18,588.82. The total new money payout will be $211,344.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
That completes the assignment, right, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir. We do have one more. Item 39. There is a recommendation for settlement in the case entitled Wilbert Liu versus City of Los Angeles through stipulations with request for award at 71% in the total amount of $121,297.50 at the weekly rate of $270, plus a life pension estimated at $57,089.05 at the weekly rate of $85.04, payable at the conclusion of permanent disability payments. After taking credit for $18,506.76, the total new money payout will be $159,879.79.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
That concludes this matter, unless you...
Thank you very much. That concludes the matter. Now I'm going to call on item 27. Mr. Rosendahl of the 11th District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And if I could ask my constituents to get to the mics, what I'm going to do, colleagues, with your permission, is this public hearing would be 1 minute for each of the folks to speak. But, colleagues, as you know, we've put a resolution before you which will make it an official policy of the City of Los Angeles to pursue a change in the departure path at the Santa Monica Airport and to close down 6 of its flight schools. My residents in West LA and Venice are frustrated with the highly concentration jet emissions from aircraft that sit and idle on the runway at Santa Monica Airport, waiting for the commercial jets from LAX to clear the airspace ahead. The jet emissions spew out in a dense residential neighborhood surrounding the airport. Changing the flight path at Santa Monica Airport so that it doesn't intersect with the LAX flight path would reduce the delays and cut down on the idling time and the pollution at Santa Monica Airport. Frankly, it would also impact LAX takeoffs and landings and make it also more efficient. A recent study by the University of California in Los Angeles measured 1,000 times normal levels of ultrafine particles and 250 times normal levels of black carbon within the Los Angeles residential neighborhood directly downwind of the Santa Monica Airport. There's no buffer. It goes right into the lungs of my constituents. We can't sit and wait anymore for the FAA to make these changes. We need to start lobbying Washington, D.C. now for a permanent solution to the suffocating jet emissions from the Santa Monica Airport. Also, I'm very concerned about the flight schools. Last year, a flight school airplane from Santa Monica Airport crashed into the Penmar Golf Course in Venice, killing the pilot and raising grave safety concerns for local residents. Aircraft from the airport's 6 flight schools regularly perform practice maneuvers over homes in the area. Frankly, I went and saw the remains of that gentleman and felt bad for him, but I also felt bad that it could have impacted a home, it could have impacted people golfing. It is just not the right thing to do in a dense urban environment. I understand that it's convenient for some to have these flight schools in the heart of West Los Angeles, but it's not safe. I would like to see them move to airports that have adequate buffer zones over less densely populated area. My communities are getting fed up with the whole process at that airport. All takeoffs, all landings go over LA, all toxicity goes over LA's, and when Jane Harman had leadership to show that if we vectored it a little bit to the right, we'd get out of the LAX flight pattern, you saw an uproar in Santa Monica because the residents all of a sudden realized that airport, which has been impacting us in Los Angeles, now is impacting them. So if everybody realizes that when that airport was put in 80, 90 years ago, it was a great thing, but today it doesn't belong there anymore. So I would like your support on that. And I know Ms. Hahn has been an incredible champion with me on this. I really admire your strength on this and even signing the pledge of going forward with Santa Monica Airport. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Councilman Rosendahl. I know we have some people in the audience that certainly want to speak on this, and you, Mr. Rosendahl, have been an incredible advocate, and sometimes you've been a lone voice, so I'm happy to add my voice to be loud and clear with you on this issue. These residents, which are residents of Los Angeles, have too long been negatively impacted by the Santa Monica Airport, and you laid it out very clearly. The reason this flight path is over Los Angeles is because if it was over Santa Monica, those residents would scream and holler. In fact, there was, I believe, a small time where the flight pattern did change, and the residents of Santa Monica, of course, complained very loudly. We know, for instance, that if the flight paths were changed, it would lessen the delays up to 80%, because, as you said, it has to coincide with LAX flight tower, has to tell them when they can depart. I sat in a home one Sunday afternoon, and with the doors and windows open, and you could smell that jet fuel. You could hear those planes. I saw pictures of patio furniture upended because of the exhaust from an airliner waiting to take off. They basically sit there on that runway, sometimes up to 20 minutes, with their tail and spewing this jet fuel and exhaust into the residents' homes. It really makes for a quality of life that I don't think any of us would put up with. And the reason I feel such kindred spirits with this group of people is because it's very similar to what happened around the Port of Los Angeles. The communities of Wilmington and San Pedro for years were negatively impacted by the operations of the Port of Los Angeles. It certainly was an economic engine, it was a job generator, but people had a higher risk of asthma and cancer. Kids were missing school because of upper respiratory diseases, and we stood firm and were able to clean that port up. We reduced emissions by about 80% out there. We can do that same thing in this situation. I am proud to stand with you to pass this resolution today, and I hope it's a unanimous vote today in the City Council so we can send a message loud and clear to the FAA and to the City of Santa Monica that no longer can their airport, which, by the way, is an airport that ferries the rich and the famous on their private jets. I don't want to say anything against rich and famous, but again, a lot of people's lives are negatively impacted by this. We're going to pass this resolution. It's going to talk about the changing of the flight path, and it's also going to talk about these flight schools. And we think this is a bad place to have 6 flight schools. And as you said, we're lucky we've only had one tragedy that you refer to. It's an accident waiting to happen, in my opinion, every time those pilots are practicing their maneuvers, their landings, and their takeoffs in a densely residential situation. No one can understand that until you go to this neighborhood, you sit with this group, and Marty and Joan and all those who are here today have been tireless advocates. I hope you are happy that finally we are hearing this in the City Council of Los Angeles. Your persistence, your tenacity, and your belief that if enough people heard this issue, they would agree with you 100% that something has to be done to change this. We hope that this is a start today of a dialogue that soon will make your neighborhood happier, healthier, and safer to live in.
Thank you very much. And point of privilege, Mr. Koretz was a great fighter for us as well.
I understand that. He has his name right up here, Mr. Rosendahl. So following Mr. Rosendahl, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Paul Koretz. Paul Koretz. Before you speak, introduce those special guests right there.
Yeah, who are they?
Who are those young kids?
Sorry, they're my children. Sorry, they're twins.
Do you want to introduce?
I'll
let you do it.
Okay. Hi. This is Caroline and Spencer, my twins. They're 9. Well, they'll be 9 May 2nd, actually.
Oh, are they on spring break?
Yes, they are. They're
Good
ready
to see the
work
children.
now.
I know Mr. Koretz thinks about the children all the time.
So these are our 2 future council members here. Give us 20 years and they'll be back. Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of Councilmember Rosendahl and his concerns about the Santa Monica Airport. And I have to say, I've been concerned about this for years. I've known of people who have had close calls with airplanes passing them when they're near the airport. But I participated in an event, and we actually had this event in front of someone's home very close to the airport, and I was astonished every couple minutes there would be a very loud plane flying just barely over their homes. And this was on a Sunday. I can't imagine having a worse Sunday than having planes buzzing you every couple minutes. I feel very badly for the people that lived there. And as we stood out there, as the jets would sit waiting to take off, you would smell unbelievable fumes. And it's otherwise a wonderful neighborhood, but this airport is a disaster. And it might have made sense 50 years ago, but it doesn't make sense in the present time where there's so many jets. Jets weren't anticipated there. I think they really need to get a handle on this. Frankly, I think this airport probably should be closed down in the middle of this residential area, but at least we have to get a handle on some of the problems. So I thank Mr. Rosendahl for bringing this forward. It impacts his constituents more directly, but the flight patterns also impact my district, and we get complaints as well. So I think we need to get a handle on this, and thank you for your efforts in this regard.
All right, thank you very much, members. As presiding, I'm going to have 1 minute public comment. We're going to call the names. Joan Rubin, please. Followed by Martin Rubin.
Good morning. I'm co-founder of Concerned Residents Against Airport Pollution, and we have been active. We have been here at City Hall many times over the past several years, coming to you with one thing or another, talking about Santa Monica Airport. I'd like to talk briefly about LA residents. We live a half a mile east of the airport. We have been bearing the burden of this airport's impacts for decades now. We have the extreme pollution. It's every day. It comes into our homes. When we garden or when we're in the neighborhood walking, it's always there, quite often in the afternoons. It's something that I think is highly unfair to impose such a burden on people, this much pollution. Also, the planes fly over Mr. Corrett's area of Cheviot Hills, Rancho Park. All right, thank you.
You can finish your line.
Oh, I just was going to say that we're so highly impacted. We fly over. We bear a lot of the burden of this airport in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Martin Rubin.
Yes, co-founder and director of Concerned Residents Against Airport Pollution. Good morning to the council. I believe that the passage of this will be a significant help to addressing the concerns of the Los Angeles residents that border half of Santa Monica Airport, actually border it. And in fact, 300 feet of the east side of the airport, ironically, where the jets sit and hold and spew the fumes and take off, is in the city of Los Angeles, believe it or not. And maybe there's something our city attorney can look into to do something about that airport being used in such an environmentally bad way. But I thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Gwen Reinhardt.
Thank you. I'm on the Airport Committee of the Mar Vista Community Council. I'm the chair of the Northwestdale Neighborhood Association Airport Committee, and I'm a member of Concerned Residents Against Airport Pollution. I live half mile due east of the airport every day. Fridays and Sundays are great because the business travelers come and go there. It's just unbreathable almost. It's toxic. It makes you sick. It has real health impacts on people. And I can't thank enough our Councilman Bill Rosendahl for his tireless and ebullient support of our cause, and for Janice Hahn for getting on board so wholeheartedly. And I don't know Paul Koretz, but I've met him a couple of times, and I bless his heart for being a good environmentalist, and I thank him for his care. And I hope we get a unanimous support of this resolution like we did a few years ago when the council supported Ted Lieu's bill. And that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kathy Levitt.
I would like to thank Council Members Rosendahl, Hahn, and Koretz for bringing this resolution before you. And I am old enough to remember when National Boulevard was Beanfields. I live in a house in Venice that was built in 1923. I've seen a lot of changes. They all have not been for the best. I would say that living near the Santa Monica Airport, we are constantly assaulted by the fumes, by the noise, and by the dangers overhead. And I would ask that you please do not turn a blind eye to the unneighborly activities from the Santa Monica Airport, which adversely affect the physical and mental health of the people who live below in Los Angeles. Please stand up for the citizens of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Ingrid Mueller, please. Ingrid Mueller.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Mueller, a resident of Venice since 1988, located just southwest of the airport. When a courageous group of my neighbors gathered at Santa Monica Airport and met with their officials, including some FAA persons that had flown in, listening to our complaints about the noise and the increase of the jet traffic that had happened in the early 90s, I think they looked at us like we were from Mars. FAA, of course, only regulates the safety of the planes and the pilots themselves, and really have no concern, it seems, for people on the ground that have to deal with the noise, the dangers, and the air pollution. This Earth Day, Friday afternoon, between 3 and 5, we have a protest on Bundy, just east of the airport, that will be protesting specifically the fuels, the leaded fuels that prop planes are still using.
Thank
Lead
you, Ms.
is
Mueller.
raining upon us. Please help. Thank you so much for your support.
Rick Rosenthal, followed by Allison Goodwin. And Allison, you go first. Rick's next.
Oh, hi. I'm a resident of Venice and a business owner and a homeowner. I've recently moved out of my house that obviously is my first home because of the noise and the pollution from the airport, and now I'm living in a rental because of the health impacts and the stress of the planes flying overhead. It's obviously a bummer. I'm pretty young, so there you go. I'm here for my community and my peers that are all working, so they can't be here today, but it's pretty hardcore. And please just, I wasn't brought up in a city that kind of supports this kind of thing, and I think that Los Angeles could be better in helping us with the pollution, and thank you all for your support.
Thank you very much, Allison. Rick Rosenthal.
Good morning. I'm speaking against the resolution this morning. I'm distressed to find this false equivalency between jet pollution and the closure of flight schools. The flight schools provide a buffer of safety for all of us, as pilots, as passengers, as people on the ground. The flight schools keep us safe. They provide an education. They are highly trained individuals. And to cast them aside and to close their businesses, to cast scores of people onto the rolls of the unemployed is absurd. I understand there are plenty of things to talk about the airport. There are things to do. There are pollution issues, I grant you. There are noise issues, I grant you. The false equivalency between the death of Mr. Davenport, who died unfortunately in Penmar, and the flight schools doesn't exist. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He was a commercial pilot. He did not die as a student pilot making a mistake. He flew his plane into the ground and saved lives.
Thank you very much. I want to say this correctly. Is it Baxter? Is that correct? On air shares? You could tell us your name. Justin?
Yes, it's Justin Beitler. Sorry, my handwriting isn't the best. But I would also like to speak out against this proposal as someone who makes a living working and flying at the airport. And I can honestly say I'm not among the rich and famous, unfortunately. But unfortunately, I think it's pretty clear that this is part of a larger agenda to close the airport. And I really don't think it has a lot to do with flight schools. And I agree with what Mr. Rosenthal said earlier, that there are noise concerns, there are pollution concerns, and we at the airport would love to work with the community to minimize the impact of the airport. But I don't think that the proper way to do that is to shut down the businesses, to put people out of work, and to somehow equate some problems that we may have with the larger aircraft, with the small aircraft that we make a living with every day. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Amanda Stewart.
My name is Amanda Stewart, and I'm co-chair of the Venice Neighborhood Council Santa Monica Airport Committee. The VNC has not had an opportunity to vote on this yet, so I cannot speak on behalf of the VNC here today. But I personally am very much in support of the resolution, and I want to thank Councilman Rosenthal and Paul Koretz and Janice Hahn for their support, and they've said it all with their knowledge about the issue, and we really appreciate their support. Regarding this resolution and the flight schools use planes that use lead gasoline, and they are going back and forth over a densely residential area. It needs to be stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Laura Silagi. Please correct me, Laura, if I mispronounce your last name.
My name is Laura Silagi. I am the co-chair of the Venice Neighborhood Community Council Santa Monica Airport Committee. Obviously, there's such a committee because there's a big problem. I want to thank Council members Rosendahl, Hahn, and Koretz for this important resolution. We're very happy that our city is finally going to protect its citizens from the abuses that we experience from the Santa Monica Airport. This airport is unique. It's about 250 to 300 feet from residences on either end of the airport. It's right next to an extremely dense residential community. There are 16 schools in the Venice Mar Vista neighborhood that these planes fly over, and many more preschools. The issue of pollution is one thing, but there's also the issue of the safety and comfort and life of the people below the flight school planes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last card is Core. Is that correct? Elgin Core?
Erickson Core.
Erickson Core.
Resident of Venice. I wanted to thank Council members Rosendahl, Hahn, and Koretz for bringing this resolution here and for supporting us. I just wanted to say lead is known to cause serious health issues in infants, small children, and pregnant women, but we're all susceptible. Everyone is. The EPA banned leaded fuel from automobiles with the Clean Air Act of 1996, yet flight schools that are continually flying over our homes and other planes departing Santa Monica Airport are still using leaded fuel today. Flight schools and their planes are commercial for-profit businesses, and while we respect and appreciate people making profits with their businesses, these profits are adversely affecting our quality of life and the health of thousands of Los Angeles residents every day. We really appreciate you passing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank all the residents for visiting our City Hall. I'd like to call on Councilwoman Perry now.
Thanks, Mr. Labange. I also wanted to note that as a governing board member of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and I was present and was able to hear firsthand accounts of the people who live in and about the flight path of Santa Monica Airport, and offered my support. And that night we had present one of the scientists from the South Coast Air Quality Management District, I think, who provided very factual, science-based analysis of the high concentration of particulate matter in the residential area. And so this decision is not made rashly, but is grounded in logic and technical basis. And while it is an incremental step and while much more needs to be done, this is a good first step, and one that can be done through words and legislation and not through having to find funding or build another bit of infrastructure. So it's a good first step. So I'm glad that you're going to gain some relief from this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Koretz, and the community for being here to speak out. I grew up right next to the Van Nuys Airport and right next to the 405 and 101 freeways. And the impact on our street was we had a high incidence of cancer on our street. Both of my parents have survived, luckily, cancer. We saw the impact. Growing up in this city, I know that a child of the 70s, my lung capacity is probably 80% of what it should be because of air quality issues that have been proven medically. And this is really an issue of human health. It's not, people want to paint this as, we live in a city and you should just accept it and you shouldn't have moved here if you didn't know. That is just, that is absolutely the sort of philosophy that got us into the sort of air we had in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when we literally were known around the world as the place to come to if you wanted to see the most unhealthy smog and air in America. Bless you for what you're doing. I think for folks that are impacted around airports throughout flight paths in the Southland, we have a nice thing called a coast, which would make it easier for airplanes to come in away from where human beings live. And because people won't go an extra 10 miles or won't go an extra 10 minutes in some cases with LAX to land planes, the impact in the community, and I know for Mr. Rosendahl, this isn't abstract, and it's not just because he's a representative. He lives right there and breathes that very same air. I remember when he was first running, he talked to me about this, and you have a great champion. But know that this city council, I think, is unified. We may not have the formal power over air, because that's the federal government, but the louder we make this call, the more they have to pay attention, and the more Santa Monica, which has been, in some ways, a great part of the Southland, but whether, as you pointed out, on traffic, they put jobs in Santa Monica without building housing, they take it to the airport, and that kind of barnacle approach to hanging on to us, the giant whale, is no longer going to be the way for the future. So thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Thank you to the community, and I wish you very well, and we'll be behind you every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you very much. And first, I want to thank the Venetians and the Mar Vistaites and all the other folks from the district that came here this morning to express what we all know makes no more sense, that airport, in a dense urban environment, for the safety issues, for the health issues, for the noise issues, for everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to especially thank my 5 colleagues who just spoke. Ms. Hahn, you were so incredible in your verbiage there that I'm most grateful for that. And Ms. Perry, that shows real leadership, the way you did with the AQMD and with the particulate matters and the truth of the toxicity of that exhaust that's going into the lungs of my constituents. And Mr. Garcetti, as the leadership here and the President of the Council, and what you just said and your history in relationship to it. And Mr. Koretz, where it became a no-brainer for him when he stood next to me there, where I said to the celebrities, hey, folks, just take your limo a little bit further down to the Imperial Terminal. You can, relax and get on a plane there rather than impacting such an urban, dense community and partial jet owners and the others. So I appreciate all my colleagues and the rest of you for listening and being part of the process, and I ask for a unanimous vote.
As we do, just a technical question. You mentioned Venetians. and Mar Vista Knights.
And all of the folks in the 11th District.
But if they're from Palms, are they Palmers?
Oh, we love Palmers.
All right, very good. All right, here we go. We thank you
We
for
love
coming
the-
down. Public comment is so important. We have some other guests we're going to recognize in a moment, but public comment is so important. Help us. Mr. Clerk, the queue is clear. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
11 ayes, okay.
Just forthwith.
Forthwith to the mayor.
Let's come in the back and take a photo.
Next item. General public comment at this time. Madam Perry.
Be removed from the board on item 35. If we're going to take that up next, I will remove myself from the board and walk out of the room. I have to recuse myself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. We note that, Mr. Clerk. I want to welcome, before we go to public comment, a young man named Zach Street, who's from Mission Viejo, California, 14 years old, on spring break. Welcome to Los Angeles City Hall. Give him a stand up and get recognized by the City Council. Good job, Zach. And also, we have the Citizen Friends of Trinidad and Tobago, hosted by Mr. Alacone's office, who are students right here in the front row, and adults. Please stand and be recognized. Our great guests there. Welcome to Los Angeles City Hall, Council Chambers. Public comment.
Mr. President, at this point in time, I believe there's been a request to take item number 35.
Yes. Okay, we'll take number 35 up.
Mr. President, I do believe we have one public comment card. If you'd like to take that now, that would be appropriate.
Okay, we'll take it now. There's no speakers on the crew. Let me check here on the cards. One card from Mr. Arnold Sachs from Lenox, California. Thank you, Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Arnold Sachs. A Brown Act violation. Woe is me. What penalties will be faced? Let me give you an example of a Brown Act violation that occurs that no penalty is being held. This is a schedule posted at MTA that states the Metro Gold Line Foothills Extension Construction Authority will be meeting, this is for February 2011, it's supposed to have met on the 2/23/11. This is a letter I received from Metro regarding that Gold Line Construction Authority. According to this letter, the Gold Line Construction Authority is an AKA of the Pasadena Metro,
Mr. President, he's not talking about this specific item.
All right, Mr. Sachs, if you're not clear, we're going to thank you.
I'm talking about Brown Act violations here.
I know, we want to talk about this item.
It's a Brown Act violation you're discussing in this item?
Stick to the point.
I am. I'm trying to find out what penalties occur for Brown Act violation. I'm explaining a Brown Act
Mr.
violation.
Sachs, I'll have someone assist you at the ropes to explain to you if you want to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much,
thank
Mr.
you.
Sachs.
Somebody going to prison?
Thank you. We'll talk to you at the ropes, Mr. Sachs. Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, there's no other speakers on the queue.
Mr. President, item 35, there is a recommendation to award attorney's fees and costs in the sum of $490,221.93 in the case entitled South Central Farmers Action Fund et al. Versus City of Los Angeles.
Mr. City Attorney?
And there's also a recommendation to approve the payment of the statutory rate of 7% post-judgment interest as applied to the $490,221.93 total from the date of judgment until the date of payment, and authorize the city attorney or designee to prepare controller instructions reflecting such payment of post-judgment interest and for any necessary technical adjustments subject to the approval of the CAO, and authorize the controller to implement the instructions.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. This matter is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item will be public comment. At this time, public comment. John Walsh. Mr. Walsh, for one moment, please. To our guests from Trinidad, the public is invited to speak if they fill out a card, and they can speak on anything that they choose to speak on at this time. Mr. Walsh, you're now directed to make your comment. Thank you.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. There's a new posting out today. Vehicle maintenance. You have an inspection. You're doing a terrible job. You cut back. Today, there was a tree trimming truck fire. You're trying to cover it up. There was a fire in the tree trimming trucks. We're going to see a lot more of this. Let's get back to the gay hate crime at Dodger Stadium. I came here, told you it was a gay hate crime, and we had Mr. Rosendahl has withdrawn his statement that I was telling a falsehood. In fact, read Sandy Banks' column in the LA Times. As they were beating him up, they used sexual slurs. These were three men. They thought they were gay. They beat them up. Now, you called them thugs. I called them gang members. Thugs, no, that's black rappers. They're black gangster rappers. They're nice people. These people in LA Weekly has announced they have done a story, and in the story it says the LAPD told them it was the 18th Street gang that dominates the park. They run things. Now, you're all afraid to say the 18th Street gang because you're afraid of them. But I'm not afraid of them, and I'll say it's not a thug, it's not a black person, it was the 18th Street gang that did it. Now, right now, there's a $3 billion deal that hangs in the balance on TV between Fox and McCourt. This is threatening the deal. Everything that's happening is threatening the deal. Read the New York Times story by Ian Lovett. They brought in Steve Soboroff, and Bud Selig is talking about canceling the deal and making McCourt sell the paper, sell the team. You don't find out any of this other than HollywoodHighlands.org. You want to know what's happening in the city? Come to my website, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. It seems that the stadium, downtown stadium, has been in the news lately. City seeks to avoid team turnover. You know what else was interesting about this stadium? The ad hoc committee, and that's not HOC. That should probably be HOCK because they're selling out everything that belongs to the public. No. There was a story regarding the Lakers and Staples Center, and AEG owns Staples Center and LA Live. But do they own the property or do they lease the property like they want to do for the stadium? You know, they want to pay this $1 a year lease for the stadium rights. So you have to think, no, it's in the papers. Yes, sir. Okay. Another wrong article. You have to think, where would they have come up with that idea to lease the property unless they already did it before? Makes you wonder why the city has to pay for bonds and they want to get some property in exchange to build more high-rises, maybe another hotel. By the way, another hotel was also put in the newspaper to be constructed. I wonder how long their waiver on the room, the city tax on the rooms, how long that will last. Just to quickly change the subject, the city has extended the red light camera contract. So as a matter of public information, from March 8, 2011, in the Daily Breeze, there's an article Ron Sokol asked the lawyer, "How can I beat a red light camera ticket?" If you'd like to get information, look it up in the Daily Breeze, March 8th, 2011. Column is "How Can I Beat a Red Light Camera Ticket?"
Thank you very much,
Help you
Mr.
out in the
Sachs.
public.
Now, the next speaker will be Armanak Norjorian.
Respectable City Council members, dear fellow Angelinos, actually, my name is Armenak Nurjanian, and as a tech-spent liberal Democrat and human rights advocate, I run for the seat of California Assembly with Progressive Agenda. I stand for social justice, racial integration, technological revolution, and environmental protection. As a liberal Democrat, I think that in case of Santa Monica Airport, was a kind of resolution about Santa Monica Airport, altering the routes of those plane flights. I know not a feasible resolution because we cannot. As a liberal Democrat, I fight against public corruption and wasteful spending. I demand cutting down gross wages of council members 50% and condemn such wasteful spending like field positions, like field deputies, or the reactionary council member Bernard Parks, who does nothing to fix the potholes in South Central. And I hit those potholes every time I get to exit at Exposition Boulevard, and there is potholes also on our places like Crenshaw Boulevard, Jefferson Boulevard. I like city council members to stop financing Wilshire Grand Hotel. As the city of Los Angeles doesn't own the property, it's owned by private owner. I believe that federal authorities will indict and prosecute Los Angeles City Council members on charge of corruption, money laundering, and embezzlement. If City of Los Angeles will start financing a private owner of that Wilshire Grand Hotel, who actually flee with your money. I believe that corrupt influence such organizations like Anschutz Entertainment Group should stop and should be prosecuted by federal authorities. I also believe that city council members should raise taxes against wealthy homeowners and expedite issuance of housing vouchers to poor Angelino residents.
Frank Stittel. Frank is not here. Walter Bechtel.
Well, for what it's worth, I just wanted to say something about, there's a lot of people talking about racism in the city of Los Angeles, and I am aware of the fact that many of the people in the third world are very afraid of white people because there's a saying among white people, we don't get mad, we get even, and I think Japan knows what that means, and other countries know what that means. When we don't get mad, we get even. And I think, again, it's better to come and express yourself. If you've experienced some kind of a racial thing in your community, get up here or somewhere else and say something. Like on the bus the other day, some person of another color referred to me as James. "Excuse me, James," he says to me. And coming home on the same bus, another person of another color said to me, and there's nothing physically wrong with him at all. He says, "Would you please reach on over there and pull a cord to stop the bus for me," as if I was some kind of a servant for him or something. And with all the name calling there is, I just want to say that we don't like it either. I don't like being called a peckerwood, a whitey, a honky, a peck, a wood, a dead, a lily white. In fact, I think that some of my Eskimo relatives would say that the people of color have more names for white people than they have for snow. So as this may turn into a get even, not get mad scenario, I still think, it's good to come up and say something despite what other things are going on. Otherwise, you're just going to hold it in, and then you're going to cause your problems here, and it's going to end up with the thing like with Miss Davenport.
Hey, Walter, when you pulled the cord, did the guy thank you?
Oh, no.
Well,
No, he expected me. He thought that I
right,
was
Walter.
some kind of a thing.
Next person will. Always help anybody you can. Thank you for your comments. Rocky Pelliconi.
Good morning, Acting President LeJean. My name is Rocky Pellicino. I'm a labor leader throughout Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. I had all intent to come before the council this morning to speak on proposed projects in the downtown Los Angeles, but while I was sitting in these chambers, I learned a great deal through education of genociding. So I'd like to reserve my comments for next week on proposed projects for downtown Los Angeles. I would just like to say to you, Councilmember Krikorian, it was very heartfelt what I heard here today in regards to genociding. I believe I got some educated on this, and I must say that from today forward, and with my family and I, we're around our Easter table dinner, when we have joined hands and with the Lord's Prayer, I will be thinking of the great Armenian people. And I truly believe in what I heard today was very heartfelt. And I just say that, I just think in all due respect to the Armenian people, I think today is here to recognize them, and I would like to reserve my comments for next week on future projects.
Thank you very much, Rocky. Thank you for those comments. Now we go to Van Nuys, California, to the Van Nuys City Hall. Gary Parker, William Sizemore, Hector Ventura, and Henry Marine. Gary Parker, William Sizemore, Hector Ventura, and Henry Marine.
Everybody's going. Can you hold my time here a second till I'm not talking to myself here?
You're okay. We can hear you loud and clear.
You can hear me, but I can't see you. Who's there?
That's okay. This is Tom Levine. Just speak your heart.
All right. I'm here on behalf of my brothers and sisters denied grievance procedures or voice and vote in matters of pay and where their benefit money went to. I've already established your duty under IRS code and ERISA to provide participation in LACERS upon an employee being provided 1,000 hours of pay in the course of a year. Now, everyone employed past 1,000 hours allowed money to be diverted from LACERS and pension plans and benefit plans for city employees. So how do you justify this? When are you going to get this money rolled over, bring these people a permanent position, and do the right thing? Mr. Rosenthal says he understands what's going on. CEO is refusing to address this matter with anybody. Nobody wants to discuss this matter. So it's your duty as the governing body being exempted under the ERIP from any responsibility for failing to provide these things, for employee retirement income protection for people in the past. This body now has a duty to stop discrimination with negatively implemented government group agreements and negatively implemented government group employment relationships. You know what those acronyms stand for. All right, thank you. I want to see some change here.
Thank you very much. No other public comment at this time. That closes public comment. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, that brings us back to item number 1 called Special for Cards.
John Walsh. Mr. John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org. New posting today. And Mickey Jackson, MIKI, Facebooking. What we have here is a hearing protest. Lighting district. We have excellent lights in certain parts of the city. All in favor of hearing protests for lighting districts. I want to tell you that one of the worst places for lighting in the city is Highland Park. It is incredibly terrible street lighting. And I hope Mr. Reyes isn't here. Thank you. 1 minute.
Thank you thank you very much. So this item now, no speakers on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And Mr. Clerk, with the arrival of the councilman of the 3rd District, who was at city business, could we consider all the 12 vote items for the ordinances?
Mr. President, that would be 2 through 4 and items 9 and 10.
Could you call them all at once, or do we have to call them singularly?
We can consider them together. To reconsider this matter, it first takes a vote of the members. So first a vote for
vote for the members. Ms. Hahn, thank you very much that you vote for the members. We'll open the roll, close the roll. Now, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
12 ayes. Forthwith on those.
Mr. President, those items are now before council.
Very good. They're before them, and we can take them up as a group. No
Yes, sir, we can.
And no speakers on the queue. So open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item number 8, called special for cards.
Item number 8, John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, and you can email us at HollywoodDems, D-E-M-S, @gmail.com. Another alcohol license. When are we going to put caps on for the convenience or necessity? You know, we have caps for marijuana, but we don't have it for alcohol. The potheads are right. We need some equity here. Do we really need another bar on West 9th Street? I very much doubt we need another bar on West 9th Street. There is no end. Endless licenses, endless alcoholism, endless. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you very much. No speakers on the queue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
30 and 33 we'll take up right now. We have a card again from Mr. Walsh on item 30.
New posting today at HollywoodHighlands.org. Well, finally, Homeboy Industries is coming here to replace the cafe that closed, Giuliano's, here in the building. A lot of people aren't even coming to the meeting, and incidentally, it is freezing here. Turn the damn air conditioner off, please. You're wasting money. And, excuse me, it is absolutely frigid in this room. And maybe we should have iced coffee when the Homeboys Industry Cafe opens at City Hall. Yes, put up banners. Let everyone know that you will now be able to have amenities at city council meetings, and you'll be able to buy coffee. They have all the coffee they can drink back there for nothing. But we over here are caffeine starved. HollywoodHighlands.org.
No other speakers? Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 33, called special for cards.
Yes, Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Sachs.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This concerns Crime Victims Week. Maybe we should name this Brian Stowe Week. Because, as you know, Mr. Zine calls the people who attacked him thugs. In fact, if you read the LA Weekly, they're not thugs, Mr. Zine. They're 18th Street Gang members. Are you afraid to say 18th Street Gang? Are you intimidated by the 18th Street Gang? That's what they are. Read the story in the LA Weekly, and they got it right from the police. 18th Street Gang did it. And if they're all up here, Mr. Zine is... Maybe that's the reason you have to wear a dress sometimes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. As National Crime Victims Week in the City of Los Angeles, are you also including the constituents of the city? Because they're the victims of crimes that are committed in these council chambers by your actions. Like, I don't know, your movement to pass the library funding. Remember with the budget cuts where you have to come up with money for everything you keep, you got to come up with another source of income. Didn't discuss that before the item was on the voters' agenda, but discussed it after. Not a crime against victims per se, but a crime against constituents. And if you don't have deep pockets, you might as well be that victim also. Thank you.
All right, no other cards on this nor on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. President, that brings us to items 28 and 40.
Yeah, which one is 28 is the, hold on a second. I'm going to call on President of the City Council, Mr. Garcetti.
So, Mr. President, just briefly, colleagues, these two related. Remember last week, when we discussed the retiree health care subsidy, we talked about also getting an update on sworn negotiations. So even though 28 comes before 40, it would be my preference for us to go into closed on 40, and then we'll come back and take a vote as well on item 28. And so if I could ask folks, why don't we, as a courtesy to the public who is here on 28, go into the executive chambers, we'll get an update from our CAO on those negotiations, and then we'll come back here into full chambers. Okay.
Very well. So the direction is that we're going to go into executive session at this time in the executive session room. This will be for council members only and support staff of the CAO. Support staff of CLA, CAO, council members only. In accordance with California state law, we move into closed session. Thank you.
Sa lahat ng dako nitong dakilang lungsod, ang mga lalaki at babae anuman ang karanasan at trabaho ay nagsama-sama, nagboboluntaryo upang tulungan ang mamayan ng Los Angeles. Sila ang manggagawa sa botohan. Tinutulungan nila ang mga botante sa araw ng halalan sa pamamagitan ng pamamahagi ng mga balota, pagsagot sa mga katanungan at pagbubukas at pagsasara ng mga lugar ng botohan. Ginagawa nila ito hindi para sa pera, hindi ginagawa nila ito upang makatulong sa ibang mga tao. Maging bahagi ng isang piling pangkat ang magagawa sa botohan ang susunod na bayaning Amerikano.
Shiny and whimsical, Mylar balloons can really perk up a party. They look innocent, but can be dangerous. The law requires that helium-filled metallic balloons be sold with weights. This silvery coating is a conductor. The balloons can float into power lines where they can arc, shorting transformers, knocking lines down, causing power outages, or spark a power surge that can destroy home electronics. Last year in the state, Mylar balloons caused more than 600 blackouts. The TV you save could be your own.
You think it can't happen to someone like you? Are you crazy? It could happen to anyone.
Knowing can save your life, or the life of someone you love.
Hey, it's free. It's painless and easy. Don't be scared. Just get tested.
Know for sure. Get an HIV test now.
come on, man. What's up, Bato? Where you from? Hey, what's up, Johnny? What's up? Hey, come here. Hey, don't look good, man. Come on. Yeah, I'm good, right? I'm good, right? Come on. Hey, come on, man. Forget it. I'm going to school.
You have a choice to make. Make sure it's the right one.
I'm glad these kids made the right choice.
Trong thành phố tuyệt vời này, tất cả mọi người bất kể nơi xuất thân và chức vụ đều có thể cùng nhau làm việc thiện nguyện để giúp cho mọi công dân của thành phố Los Angeles. Họ là những nhân viên làm việc tại phòng phiếu. Họ giúp các cử tri trong ngày bầu cử bằng cách phân phối lá phiếu, trả lời những câu hỏi, đóng cửa và mở cửa các phòng phiếu. Họ làm việc đó không phải vì tiền, hoàn toàn không, nhưng là để giúp những người khác. Trở thành một phần tử trong nhóm tuyệt hảo, làm nhân viên phòng phiếu là tiếp nối để trở thành một người hùng kế tiếp của Hoa Kỳ.
You know, it's that time of year again, to clear all that annoying dry brush from around your house. In the event of a fire, dry brush is extremely combustible and can explode. By clearing brush 200 feet from your home, you create a barrier, lessening the likelihood of spreading a fire. I'll still be here when you get back! Get the message. Be prepared.
Water in LA is limited. Every drop is precious, but we can all do our share. Use a broom instead of a hose. Wash your car only with a shutoff nozzle. Fix water leaks. Choose drought-tolerant plans and run your sprinklers based on your street address. Odd addresses on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And even addresses on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, before 9 a.m. or after 4 p.m. The future of LA is in our hands, and that's a good thing.
All right, thank you very much. We are now back in session. Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Excuse me, Madam President, item 28.
All right, Mr. Garcetti has pushed his button. We have two cards to speak on this item.
We can do public comment first.
Why don't we let them go first? Arnold Sachs and Beverly Kenworthy, would you come forward? Is Beverly still here? Okay, great. Beverly, you're there right now, so why don't you speak first?
Very good. Beverly Kenworthy with the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I put a letter on your desk from our President and CEO, Gary Tobin. Would like to support the CAO's recommendation on the permanent freeze of retiree medical subsidies. We know these are really difficult decisions. As a former employee of the city myself, I wouldn't relish such a thing, but I think we have to think of the larger issue of what's good for the city, what's good for the city's taxpayers. We'd all like to have, these super benefits, but in this time of fiscal crisis, we need to make some tough decisions. And we just wanted to let you know that we support this recommendation. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Arnold Sachs. It'd be interesting to find out what hat you wore in this discussions. Because last year, in the budget discussions, I swear it was all about the city family and the city employees being part of the family. And you're all one big family. And it's family, 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 and more family. And now you have to discuss pension reform for your family. So where does the constituent come in this family discussion? Because last year was all about the family. This year it's all about the pension for the family. So which hat were you wearing in the back, which is not part of the chambers unless it's part of the chambers? Because we know when you're in the back, you're not in the front, and when you're in the front, you're not in the back. But that's a Brown Act thing. We don't want to talk about that. And by the way, there was a lot of discussion at one time about taking over the center table here. We need to take back the center table. So where is the DWP pension in these discussions? Because we know that you're here on a third term because you requested a third term to take care of unfinished business that you couldn't handle in 2 terms. So where's the DWP pension in this discussion? That's a pension that costs the city's general fund, doesn't it? What hat are you wearing there? Because they're not really part of the family because that's a proprietary department. And they're certainly, are they constituent family? Or are they city employee family? Be interesting to find out what hat you're wearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, this is a continued discussion from last week, and I just wanted to lay out a very simple and straightforward record on what is before us. What is before us today is a path that we will only pursue should we not be able to negotiate at the table or through ratification, ultimately, agreements with our bargaining units to address head-on our rising health care costs. To their credit, police, fire, and civilian unions either have been or are at the table, and those that aren't, in our closed discussion, we reiterated that everybody has to be at the table on a parallel track right now. To be able to bargain in good faith, to continue to show that in Los Angeles we do believe in collective bargaining, that it can and does work, but in the meantime, should anything break down, we have to balance the budget and control these health care costs. I've introduced a motion here today, it's been seconded by Ms. Perry and Mr. Parks and Mr. Krikorian, on moving forward on the drafting of the to come back with a draft ordinance within 14 days on the LACER medical subsidy, and to answer the questions that were raised last week by our sworn unions. To continue the momentum there, we'll get those questions back in 14 days and be able to move, depending on what's happening, with our negotiations forward there as well. But we heard loud and clear that there are some particular things that we have to address, whether it was drop, retirement rates, and speaking with the LAFPP staff. So we're going to give the space to do that. In the meantime, move forward with the drafting. I want to be clear with both our civilians and our sworn, as I was last week. We are not looking to do this unless we do not have other pathways. And I fully believe those pathways are moving forward well. They can. We can't predict the future, but we have to protect ourselves for it and be thoughtful and be prepared. So I would ask for this motion to be incorporated, and we can come back in 14 days and assess where we're at, get some of those answers on the sworn side, and see where we are on the civilian side then too.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. There are no other speakers in the queue. Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll on this item? Close the roll.
Madam President, for clarification, this would be item 28 as amended by the motion that Council President Garcetti just referred to, which is currently being circulated.
Okay, yeah. Is it coming around now?
It is, Madam President.
All right, do we need to wait a second to make sure everybody has had a chance to look at it? What is the amendment? 28?
28A.
28A. So if you all would take a quick look at that. Does everybody have it? 28A. And when we vote, Mr. Clerk, we will vote first on the item as amended. Is that correct?
Madam President, yes, that would be correct. 28A does amend 28.
I believe everybody has 28A on the desk now, so we will vote on 28 as amended by 28A. Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
All right. Next order of business.
Madam President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motions are posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
Members, are there any announcements? Any announcements? Mr. Labange.
Throughout the world, Passover, 8 days. We're in day number 3. And then later on, Good Friday this week. And then Easter Sunday. Wish everybody a happy Easter, a blessed Easter. Whatever your faith is, just make sure you have faith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Laban. Mr. Rosendahl, you have an announcement.
Yeah, just a quick announcement to my constituents in Brentwood and West LA. We all now know the president is going to be there Thursday night. Look at the signage that has been put up. Realize that it will be a soft closure at different locations, but appreciate that so you don't get caught in any unnecessary paralysis, gridlock on the road. But take a look at it today and tonight so you can prepare yourself for what will be a soft closure when the president arrives and then when he leaves. He will go by chopper to the VA property, which will have a dramatic lessening impact on what could be overall even more problematic. But do take a look at the signs that are going up and appreciate the fact that the president will be in that neighborhood tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Labange. Follow Mr. Rosendahl. Thank you for your leadership in that. I know your contacts help spur it along, and the president will travel safely by air. But we always welcome the president of the United States to the second largest city, and know that the work that he's doing to try to help the 405 and the ARA funds to help that freeway move better, the more he can leave, the better. Good job, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Any other announcements? Seeing none, adjourning motions. See adjourning motions. Ms. Perry, adjourning motions. Please stand. Everyone, please stand for adjourning motions. Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have to adjourn in memory of 2 individuals today. The first is Gwendolyn Allen Cannon. She was 86 and passed away on Saturday, April 16th. She was born March 5th, 1925 in Oklahoma City to parents Minnie and Isaac Cosby. She was one of 10 children and spent her childhood in Oklahoma and moved to Los Angeles in 1952. She lived in the 9th District for more than 50 years and worked to improve the quality of life for her family and her community. She was a founding member of a grassroots organization formed in 1985 called Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles. The organization led a successful drive against the Lancer Project, a huge trash incineration plant that was planned for the South Central community, and she served in its early years as treasurer. She was a kind and giving person who provided her home as a shelter to family and friends, and she had many friends from her hometown. Whenever they came or relocated to California, they often contacted her. Her home was a location to gather for conversation, cards, and good food. The door was always open, and she'll always be remembered for her caring ways and legendary Sunday meals. She leaves to cherish her memory: 2 brothers, 2 sisters, 7 children, and daughter-in-law, a host of nieces and nephews, and other special people in her life. I'd also like to adjourn in memory of Monroe Smith, a friend and long-term resident of South Los Angeles. Monroe was born in Pensacola, Florida on June 15, 1924, and moved to Los Angeles in the late 1940s after serving in the Navy until he was honorably discharged. In the 1960s and 1970s, Monroe was a member of the Congress of Racial Equality, where they staged many protests for the Civil Rights Movement. He worked for Rockwell Aviation for 30 years until his retirement, and he maintained a career during retirement for Rockwell and council member Nate Holden, and from there he began working for Supervisor Yvonne Brathwaite Burke. He also worked on my first campaign and worked in my council office for a while. He was particularly effective in working with the seniors in the district and making sure that they received good city services. He was a very popular gentleman with participants at our annual Seniors Celebrating Life event. He represented the 9th District at the Baptist Ministers Conference, making sure that all churches' needs were met. He was married to his wife Lily in 1958 and was the father of 5 children. He has 5 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. He will be sincerely missed. Sure, yeah, that'd be nice. All members.
All members? All members on that. Thank you, Ms. Perry. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? Seeing no other adjourning motions, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. This concludes this meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. We will return next Tuesday, Good Friday.